Yes, yes, yes. Welcome back to another episode of DSC Podcast. Prez, it's been
Yeah,
a crazy week, man, as far
it's
as
definitely
everything that's
been
happening,
crazy.
man.
Definitely.
But before we begin and whatever, we'll run through the show notes and some housekeeping things. So, you want to tap into the Patreon thing real quick for everybody?
Oh yeah, so we want to continue to get a shout out to our current Patreon supporters. Y'all know who you are. The Foundation, Corey, bam,
That's
and then Bird. There we go.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate the support. But anybody else who want to contribute to the Patreon, y'all know our links in below. You can find it on the link tree as well. We appreciate the support. It's constantly helping us build, get a little bit better each and every time. We got some new ventures that we've been discussing offline that we're going to come into pretty much. I can see y'all probably. I'm gonna give y'all a deadline of August time frame. We're gonna have some new things out there and some new direction. We're going to help fund this even more. So yeah,
That's what's up. That's what's up. And again, we one more, Manuel, as far as Patreon supporter, our latest Patreon supporter. So
Okay.
a lot of you guys, you may not know about it, but hey, man, just continue to support us if you can. If not, we totally understand. But we're gonna continue to try to elevate for you all as far as look and sound of the pod and things that we have in store for you. As far as show notes today, we're just gonna talk about things that have progressed since we spoke on George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and
Yep.
Ahmaud Arbery, and countless others, and all of the marching and all the great things we're seeing, and also some of the things on the other side, the narrative shifting that we're seeing as well over the course of the week. So, with that said, Perez, how your week been, man? I know we had the thing with the Air Force happening as far as the racial inequality and that report coming out. I know for one, I had like a little, not a talking to, but had several people from my job just kind of start speaking on these subjects as we asked for last week. But it finally came to a boil. So how did you deal with that conversations?
I will tell y'all, like, not just on here do I speak. I make sure I make my voice known where I work at as well. So anything that you hear me speaking on here, you better be. I'm damn sure going to talk about it in the right place. So no matter what, I think all that stuff came down like starting around about Tuesday. It was good to start hearing from our leaders, but I don't need their voices to know what's right and what's wrong and when you should speak up. So that was already starting. If y'all don't know, we record this thing on the weekend, so that was in our what we was thinking way ahead. And I know we wasn't the only ones, and that's what I'm saying. But that's why you gotta know your position where you can, and you gotta know just don't settle for that at any time. And that's where I came from. I wasn't gonna sit back and wait for them to give me the answers.
Right, come to you.
Come to me, find out. I was like, nah, like this came out. Y'all haven't said nothing, or there has been no coverage whatsoever. Like where are we at? You got to ask those questions. Some of them gonna be uncomfortable. Like when you oh, why you asking that? Because it's what's on my mind. It's what I do. And I can't focus on what I need to focus on until I know what's going on with these other issues. So definitely, that was a hard week. It was a hard week. I ain't gonna lie. Just getting up and going to work. But as the week went on, more and more leaders started to speak out. More and more supporters from every career, every aspect of life. And even in Europe over here, they're protesting and stuff like that about what's going on in our neighborhoods. And
That's a good thing to see for once. You know how anything always comes out in terms of like an earthquake or any type of virus outbreak or anything that goes on overseas. You notice that we always run to help and make our voices known, to jump in. And I'm not going to say that is disingenuous, as everybody has a part to play, and I think you know what I'm saying when it comes to us helping out other countries. But what I will say is it was great to see in terms of just people all over the globe. Like, we got people all over the globe stationed there, and then we also just got great people in all these different be sure to cut off your phone. But anyway, before you pod. But it was just great to see that people were stepping up all over the world in terms of what they saw. Like for once, the unjustified murder of George Floyd was seen by the masses, and that's all you can hope for. You hate for him to be a martyr of sorts, but man, I see a lot of things moving in the right direction. And for starters, it's good. You know what I mean? And I hate to be a pessimist because I am, but I got to see it moving forward over the course of the next, some legislation put in place for years to come. That way, things change for the better, for good. You know what I mean? Once and for all. So I was encouraged by that, though.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, man, work. I don't think it was a difficult discussion for me. I was ready to have that discussion more than ever. Like I was like, you want to know what I think about everything? Okay, let's have a conversation. And I think the conversations were genuine. I think they were thought provoking. I think the people that came to me to talk to me cared. I cannot be one of those people that say, hey, I want you to talk to me. Then when people talk to me, feel the opposite way. Like, yes, it came to a boil. Yes, they were living in a bubble. I understand this is not on their radar. I understand. You know what I mean? But I can't make it become a part of their daily life because they don't have to have the same, for example, discussions with their kids as far as how to walk, how to move, how to carry yourself, how to know that you're going to be viewed in a certain type of way, how to react when somebody clutches their purse when you walk by, how to react when somebody gets out of an elevator when you step in. All of a sudden, they don't have to go on the floor that they have to go to, and how to feel. Like you don't have to have those conversations with your kids. So I don't imagine that you would even know what it's like for many of us to walk in our shoes. So, but the fact that the people I work with started to understand, and maybe it took this to happen. However we got here, we're here now. And they asked me that, if I wanted to, get into this diversity thing that's kind of going around our unit. And I was like, absolutely. You know what I mean? If I want to put my money where my mouth is. So I don't want to just come on here and talk and complain about things. I do want to put myself in position to see reports in terms of our job. And if you haven't watched last episode, what we were talking about, and you could jump in at any time, Prez, is basically just the racial inequality in terms of rank and non-judicial and judicial punishment. So that came out on the heels of all of this marching and protesting last week for us. So it all came to a head for us as far as what we do in the military. However, you cannot talk about wanting to make change and not affect change. So this is the way I can affect change in my little thing. You know what I mean?
When these talks starting to happen, man, I'm starting to see and hear some outlandish remarks, just way left. I've been able to keep my cool though, and guide them back to the conversation and guide them down the right direction, educate a little bit more. Takes a lot of patience though, a lot of patience with some of the initial statements that people come on. Let me get this straight. Let me let everybody get this straight. The police, we understand what they're there for. What we're saying is they have been unfairly policing, arresting, brutalizing our neighborhoods. Does that mean that every time they go do something is wrong? No, far from it. Far from it. But don't be coming to me with the, I got a black friend excuse. Like that's what I see of. And it was like, they'll show me one incident of a police. For every one, I can show you 10 going the other way. And that's what we're saying is wrong. It's not just one incident. Don't be holding this stuff to like, why ain't nobody saying nothing about this? We know there are tons of wrongs in the world. But when they got statistical facts, when we can take you through a neighborhood, we can have you talk to 20 people and they all tell you the same thing, there's something wrong. There's something wrong.
Yeah, and it'll keep going back with the coining these terms.
Yeah.
As far as black on black crime and why do we have to coin terms? Like, crime is crime. All it is one big ploy to say, what about what happened in Chicago?
Yeah.
What about what's happening in LA? Quit trying to deflect
the topic. Let's talk about what's going on and what we have facts about. Like what's really going on here? Like quit trying to deflect and get out of a truthful, hard conversation.
And that's all, and I know we jumping all over the place, but I will jump back to that when we talk about Drew Brees.
Okay.
Because I think that's the perfect example I can give. Drew Brees, the NFL quarterback, and we're going to get to that later, but I think that's the perfect example I can give as in terms of just not recognizing your privilege. You still making things about
something that it never was.
Something that it never was.
It never was.
You know what I mean? Okay, you had a grandfather that served in the military. I've had family that served in the military too.
If I told you my jobs that my grandfathers them had to do in the military and still came back out and showed nothing but support for this country, despite the way it was treating them when they came back, but still have nothing but love. My grandfather put up a flag every day that he was alive.
Exactly.
From a country that didn't want to recognize what he was doing when he was doing it. It's crazy.
For sure. So it's one of those things to where you're like, man, stop trying to change the narrative and let's deal with the policing. Let's deal with one issue at a time. Police brutality. That's what we're marching on right this second. And then we're trying to ease in the rest of the things into your purview so that you can understand all of the things that Black people go through in America. You know what I mean? So I think I sent you guys like a little meme, and I think I'll put it in the show notes in terms of just the difference between the typical white young man and Black male growing up, within maybe 15, 20 miles of each other. And we can use the Chicago reference, you know what I mean? And the schools and the funding and all these different type of things, which is pretty much leading up to a person not having the same opportunities as someone else. And it's strictly because of poverty, and then also not having fathers, mothers, aunts, uncles, like positive role models around, because everybody in the home is sometimes in jail, sometimes on drugs, or quite frankly, they do not have the money to support that kid in the way that kid needs to be supported. So all these things kind of come to a head. And then when you're looking on news channels and things like that, all you see is Black crime or Black people, majority of the time, as far as being made to look like monsters, when in all fact that crime, but with white folks is at an all-time high, and it never hasn't been. Like, so it's the same thing.
Same percentage as any other race. I think we done came back on that. Like, they do studies, a certain percentage is going to do things, man, and that's just what it is. But one thing that I think you done heard us talk time and time again on here, like, because if you think this was our first time speaking on these issues, then go back and listen to the other episodes. And for those who say, oh, this is just a hot button issue now, and this is what we talk about. No, like I said, go back and listen to this podcast. Y'all know who the host is, what color we are, and think about this, how many times we done had this discussion, because it's not something that goes on just now. Just when something's boiling up. It's something we have conversations on every day. How to fix the wrongs that we done seen come across. I think it initially started when we're going and pushing all these Black-owned businesses and everything, is because we understand like what it takes to build up a generation, what it takes to correct these errors, and get us looked at in the same light as any other race. And that's what we want to educate and continue to promote and push forward and get everybody as equals. That's it, which is equals.
And it's funny though, like I saw somebody with the basic tweet and they just said, it's funny that I have to fight for equality in America in 2020. Like, it's funny I have to convince you or anybody that says anything otherwise of being equal with you, of wanting to be equal. Like, what's wrong with that? Like, so with that said, man, try to do as much as you can do in your, you got some prayer?
Yeah. And this is what I was going to get at after that, was just like, we know that this can't just be a topic for now. It has to keep going. It has to keep driving and pushing forward. And I think we're starting to see that with some of the athletes and other companies that's putting their money behind it. They're not putting it behind it just for now. They ain't making a one-time donation. They're saying 10 years, as Jordan came out and did. He's donating for the next 10 years $100 million. Like that's big. That's big. That's not gonna let the topic stop. And that's gonna make sure these things pan out over time. And I think that is key. And we need to see more of that, not just the single donations to a single fund or a single organization that could be gone next year. Right. Put your money behind it to stand up and keep having somebody lobby, fight, and continue to improve and reform these laws to get us back into what should be, like I said, normal. Like what should be equality. Equality, that's it.
And all it's going to take is legislation, because we know we don't want this to be the latest hot button topic where everybody's up in an uproar. We want this to change for all of Americans. Like everybody has a part to play, no matter what race you are. If you're American, you have a part to play to contribute to society. I nor anybody else that's my shade should offend your come up. You know what I mean? So the term, forgive me, I listen to rap, what I eat don't make you shit. So my come up should not affect you, is what I'm trying to say. Or vice versa. What you do as a white, brown, gray, red man, no pun intended, doesn't really matter to me. You know what I mean? I just want a fair shake at things. And that's all it says. But kind of you hit on something with Michael Jordan that was interesting. There's always going to come the pessimists and the critics to anything sports figures do, corporations, or anybody else. So with that said, Prez, like the things that I read, all right, Kanye contributed a $2 million donation to the legal teams of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and Ahmaud Arbery, right?
You know what? I'm going to applaud this man because that's a big difference from what we've seen from him and his support over the past couple of years, because it kind of feigned a little bit. I'm glad to see him back out there in the open, supporting the issues that actually matter. Definitely shout out. Thank you, Kanye.
Yep. And then he also put together a fund for George Floyd's daughter, Gianna, I believe her name is, for 529 college fund as well. Mm-hmm. So she has college paid for, which I thought that was a huge deal. You know what I mean? So I got to say, I don't have nothing. There's nothing wrong with that. And, people, specifically the radio personality Ebro, had issues with that. He even came out in March, and it wasn't for long. But again, people don't have to do this at all. Like, I'm not putting Kanye up on this pedestal, but anything that you can give to help, it has to be appreciated at the end of the day. What more do you want from him? Like,
and this is where
I think it's the Trump thing. I think it's the Trump thing.
Yeah, it's what he done did before, so people going to be kind of like going back. Just bro, I make mistakes in my lives. I do wrong things. I ain't going on nobody's mistakes. I ain't gonna continually talk about people's mistakes like that. It's what you do and how you show after you.
You evolve and grow all the time, every day. So I don't have a problem with it.
No,
at all. Like, he didn't have to do that. He could have stayed in his billionaire mansion and continued to live life as normal. And truth be told, I don't care necessarily for Kim Kardashian or all these other things. Let me walk that back. I don't care about what she's done, how she's got her riches and all that. Like, I don't follow that stuff. But I do follow some of the things that she's doing for prison reform and things like that, or just using her likeness. Like, if you can use your likeness and you get a few brothers out of jail, applaud your sister. Like, like, people are so quick to judge instead of looking at the outcome of the impacts on what they're doing. You know what I mean? So I don't think that that's necessarily an issue for me. Same thing with Jordan. Oh, Jordan should have been doing this. They went and looked up his liquid assets and his worth and said, oh, he only gave a percentage of this. And it's like, dog, I don't have to give my money to anything I don't want to give my money to. So why do I expect them to do the same? Like, you can't have the same, what can I say? You can't have the same issues with a person in terms of what they give if you're not giving the same either, or in your time. You know what I mean? People giving their time and they're giving their money, and if they're giving a big deal in their money, you just got to appreciate it and keep it moving.
Like I said, and it's not about necessarily always what they're doing. It's what you're doing to to continually improve. What are you doing? Are you doing what you need to do to have a conversation, keeping in that thing? Are you like, we know voting is a big issue. Like, what are you doing to drive and get more people to vote? What are you doing to bring up to your congressmen to enforce a change? Like don't worry about so much what the next man or his money, what his wallet. Yes, they can definitely help and put the spotlight on it. But at the same time, if you ain't doing nothing, that's where it's gonna stop right there. If too many people think like you, or like, I ain't trying to come at nobody. Let me walk that back. So if too many people think that ain't nothing gonna change, so I should do nothing, guess what? Nothing's gonna change.
Yeah, just start with one person. Start with taking an interest in one kid or somebody that's doing something positive and try to push them to the next level. That's all you can do, is work one person at a time. If you can't give money, give your time to whatever that cause may be that makes you feel good and whole about yourself. Because at a certain point, if more people do that, then we're going to ultimately get to where we need to be. And back to the corporations and all of these people with statements coming out of Adidas, Nike, you name it, Ben and Jerry's, they even got arrested in a protest this week. I don't know.
Oh no, I didn't see that.
Yeah, the owners of Ben and Jerry.
We're gonna get a Black Lives Matter ice cream.
I don't know, but I know it's gonna be fire. But yeah, I mean, you saw all types of sports figures out. I forget who I saw. Oh, you saw rappers. You saw J. Cole marching. I saw Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics. Of course, you had Steven Jackson because he knew George Floyd personally, and just countless others just taking action and not speaking on it, just doing it. You saw them, and I don't care how long they were out there. They're just using their likeness for people to just feel like, hey, everybody is with us, because this can happen to anybody, no matter how rich you get. You know what I mean? And I was watching Chris Rock's Tambourine. He was like, I'm rich, but I ain't rich.
So now if you bring it back to music and they talk about this, I think Jay-Z played this plainly in the story of OJ. Like, go back and re-listen to that. That's what he's talking about. No matter how much money you get, these are still our problems. They're gonna always see you as like, so make sure that you're doing whatever you can to improve. Go back.
Right. When you're in those rooms, you're gonna have to use your influence for good, hopefully, especially, if you're a black person. I know that's a lot of pressure to put on people who are in a position of power, but just look at our Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. Like, the things that he said in his statement were very real, very true, and can speak volumes for a lot of black people in and out of uniform. So sometimes you need people to step up and use their platform for good and say what needs to be said and not sugarcoat it any longer. And if they can do it again with the money too, because economically, that's where the real change happens. Like, regardless of what you want to believe, money moves the ship when we're talking about where we trying to steer to. So, well, yeah, man, I was encouraged to see all these things. I read something. Of course, I follow New York Post, and of course, I got family in New York because I'm from New York. And a lot of people have what they want to say about Governor Andrew Cuomo, but he was looking to pass a legislation as soon as next week, or get the bill out in terms of, what was the lady's name? Amy, I forget. But you remember the lady that called that black man out in Central Park in terms of what he was trying to get her to do with putting the dog back on the leash. So he has a bill named after her. So to me, it was kind of like trolling. But at the same time, to make that a hate crime for any race, gender, or religion, like if you're just calling people just based on how they look, so soon after 9/11, those type of things that were happening to folks, and just because they fit a description that you see, on TV, or, calling the cops, and she knew exactly what she was doing, trying to make that a hate crime. And I hope that passes, and I hope that gets legs and moves to every damn state. You know what I mean? So that people don't get to call you out just because you look suspicious. Like, what is that? You know what I mean? Like, so I'm encouraged. Yeah. Hopefully things are done, like you said, Prez, for the long term.
I will say this. Let me go back to this. I've been noticing on TV. I've been noticing at work. As I think we brought up in there, people talk about this code switching.
Oh yes. Oh my goodness.
Now I done seen some people actually get real, and they ain't ashamed of being real this week. They coming out with it, and they telling y'all how they are and how they feel, and you're getting the real, like you ain't getting the dolled up or prettied up, or that version of it. You're getting the real raw, what the conversation that they really have, how they talk, and what going on, and how they feel about these situations. And I applaud that. Like, that's how it should be. We shouldn't have never had to like do a swap or talk a certain type of way. Like, it should just be accepted. Like every culture, everybody brings something good to this, and just because like my speech is a little different from your speech, like, hey, just understand, and we can come to this common language on everything. But if I say something don't be saying that's ghetto. No, that's the way we talk. Like that it is what it is,
Right. And necessarily how you talk doesn't mean that you're educated. Like, I may have more education than you, but this is how I talk. Period. Like, I shouldn't be made to be felt ashamed because I'm not using the certain type of dialect that you use. You know what I mean? So that was, like you said, that was dope to see that people were just really just letting it hang out, from sports figures to political figures to analysts on the different news channels. Like, they were, I won't say they were tap dancing around, but it just was a lot more raw and to the point, because I think people are tired of tip-tap-toeing around on how they feel, and they just getting right to it. And that's the same way I approached it when I was talked to at my job today. Not today, but this past week about it. Is just keeping it raw. And then one of my coworkers, he even pulled up an article of his cousin that was wrongfully accused, and how they're still fighting that case and trying to get awarded some type of financial repercussion from the city of Atlanta, in terms, not the city, but I forgot what county he lives in, but he's from Atlanta, in terms of that, to where his cousin was going through some things, and he pulled it up and he was like, yo, man, he was acquitted of all charges, but he was being held up because he couldn't, pay for bail for himself for years. He was held up almost 2 years. And then when he finally went to court and was acquitted of all the charges, it's like, yo, he wasted damn near 2 years and some change of his life having to fight that and having that over his head, not being able to be hired as a result of it. Like, so this thing goes deeper than you know. So yeah, I was encouraged, man. But with that said, man,